Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of NAHL Coaches Corner. I'm Alex Kyrias. Today we are talking to the head coach of the Kenai River Brown Bears, Mr. Kevin Murdock. Kevin, how you doing today?
Doing well, Alex. Thanks.
Good. Past season, the 2019-2020 season, you had to be a little bit disappointed that the season was interrupted and ultimately canceled because, wow, what a resurgent team you had there in Kenai River. Not only were you just about to clinch a playoff spot and find yourself in contention for the Robertson Cup playoffs, but you also had a tremendous year with your players committing to NCAA schools, a real shot in the arm for the organization. I know a lot of credit goes around, but certainly we look at the head coach first with what had transpired on the ice in the commitment department. So just your thoughts overall about the resurgent season that the Brown Bears had.
I mean, I think this year it was one of the better years in recent memory for the Bears. But like if you look over the past, I think 5 years now, the team has continually had a better and better record every single season. So I think this was a little bit of a culmination of all of that stuff. If you look at some of the guys who had been there, you got Preston Weeks, who had played pretty much 4.5 years in the league, and Zach Granick and a few of those other guys that I was fortunate enough to inherit when I came in this fall. Those were guys had a ton of experience in the league, and fortunate enough to be able to keep them around for their last year. And it's unfortunate with the season ending the way it did that guys in their situation weren't able to, they worked so hard to finally make that playoff spot their final junior season, and they never got the opportunity to actually play in it. So
I want to take you back to the supplemental draft. I know that the plans immediately began building for the 2021 season after the cancellation. The supplemental draft was one of your chances to put your stamp on this, what the roster is going to look like for the 2021 season. Were you happy with your selections, and what did you think overall of it?
Yeah, I was extremely happy with our selections. We got the guys we were looking to get, and I think just looking at what we lose up front as far as production goes, our goal was to try to find some forwards that could come in and help produce next year, and I think we were able to get that in that supplemental draft.
You guys are a little bit unique in the fact that camps are ramping up here starting in the next couple of weeks, really get going in July, but you guys have already had a camp. Tell us how it went, what was involved, and ultimately how happy were you getting back onto the ice and seeing some tryouts?
Yeah, our camp last weekend up in Eagle River, Alaska was actually pretty successful for us. We had a really good turnout. We had about 90 players or so. The competition on the ice was actually really good. All things considered, most of the players hadn't been on the ice for about 3 months. So, but it was great. It brought a little bit of normalcy back into, the summer routine, where as this last probably month and a half, you're traditionally on the road running camps and getting ready for the draft that would have been a couple of weeks ago and whatnot. So felt good to kind of get back to what a normal summer would feel like.
For those that are watching out there this video and they're thinking, hey, I'm a hockey player, or hey, I have a son that has been invited to a team camp, explain to the audience out there why the tryout camp process is so important.
Well, I think for a lot of guys, like for us in particular, like we don't have the opportunity to be on the road all that much, just with our travel schedule and stuff. And we do have some scouts helping us out here and there. But we aren't able to get out and see that much hockey in terms of high school and midget hockey and different levels. So it gives us a good opportunity to maybe see some of these guys we either heard about or seen online, but either haven't had an opportunity to watch at all in person or very, very little in person. And for us, camps, especially these pre-draft camps, have been very, very helpful for us, especially last summer as we got ready for the draft.
Having completed your first full season, what can you look back on and think, gosh, these are the 2 or 3 things that I really liked about being a head coach in the NAHL?
The biggest thing is just the level of competition every single day, both in games and in practice. I mean, the players at this level are so dedicated to getting better and moving on and taking that next step in their career, whether it's moving up to the USHL or Division I or Division III college hockey. So I think that ultimately is the biggest thing. You don't really have any days off during the season. You're always kind of working on something, trying to tweak something one way or another, and trying to help these guys get to, where they want to go ultimately.
And finally, Kevin, you came from the North Iowa Bulls in the NA3HL, a league that is now over 10 years old, has produced several NCAA prospects themselves. And I'm wondering, what are some of the benefits that you've seen with the NAHL to NA3HL relationship? Because you yourself are a ladder of development success story. You started out coaching with the successful Bulls program there in North Iowa, got the opportunity to be an NAHL head coach. You've had success now with that. Hopefully that will continue. But I'm wondering, what are some of the benefits between the relationships between the two leagues and the NA3HL in general?
Well, I think this year, especially for us, this past season, we ended up we had 2 former NA3HL players on our roster. This next year, it's looking like we'll have at least 3 just based on what we have returning and guys protected and whatnot. And I think it's a very good stepping stone. I think there's a lot of kids who come out of high school hockey that are still a little bit young. And, depending on, if you look at the 2 guys we had this year, we had Damon Dodge and Loudon Pullinger. And both of those guys came from some very small schools in Minnesota that the NA3 was kind of a gap for them to get a little bit more exposure, but a little bit maybe better competition on a daily basis, and kind of fill in some of that time and allow them a couple of extra months to develop. And they were both guys that we brought in. Damon Dodge was a guy that we brought in just before Christmas time this year. And Loudon was a guy that was brought in the previous season right around Christmas time as well. And for me, just with our geographics and us traveling and different things like that, we were fortunate enough this year to be able to bring in a couple different guys from the NA3 throughout the season, whether we had injuries or different things like that. And spending time down in Minnesota in the winter, able to bring in different players from different teams to practice. So I think for us, especially, like, just keeping those players close by and being able to call them up during the season and give them opportunities. And we were fortunate enough to have a couple guys who were able to be put in those situations and have some success and stick with our team during it. So I think that's the biggest thing. I think you go to a couple other places or different leagues and you might lock yourself out for the entirety of the regular season and have to wait till next summer. But just with the landscape of everything and the relationship between the NA and the NA3, there's player movement up and down pretty consistently throughout the season up until the trade deadline. And even still, you'll see teams pretty regularly add their NA3HL tenders for their the roster expansion at the end of the season and playoffs. So
Kevin did a remarkable job this season. Team was heading in the right direction. It's great to see a huge list of NCAA commitments from the Kenai River Brown Bears. So, again, congratulations on your success this season. We hope that continues into next year. Stay safe the rest of the summer. And, again, thank you for joining us here on Coaches Corner.
Thank you for having me, Alex. Hopefully see you in Columbus in a week and a half now.
Yeah, let's hope so. That is Kevin Murdock, head coach of the Kenai River Brown Bears, here on another edition of NAHL Coaches Corner.